The Spider-Man Far From Home trailer dropped. What did you guys think? We're going to talk about it. We're going to break it down. For a guy who's a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, he sure does get around a lot. In Homecoming, he was in D.C. Civil War, he was off fighting superheroes in other countries at airports. In Infinity War, he goes to outer space. And in this movie, we know he's on a European vacation. And we know he at least goes to London and Venice. This is one of the things that I'm concerned about with this movie. It has me a little bit on the fence. New York City is such a big part of who Spider-Man is as a hero. I'm not saying you can't take him out of his element, put him in a different environment and not get a good Spider-Man story. But you want to put your best foot forward, and the best Spider-Man story you're going to get is going to take place in Manhattan. We get a couple of action shots of Spidey, and we get to see him in his new suit, which I'm going to get into a little bit later. We also see a return of flying squirrel wings. And even Spider-Man is a slave to technology. You definitely shouldn't text and drive. But if you have spider powers and you can swing through the city of Manhattan at 100 feet in the air, you're probably good. The big debate on social media was, does this movie take place before or after the events of Avengers Infinity War and Endgame? A little while ago, executive producers Kevin Feige and Amy Pascal confirmed that this movie does indeed take place minutes after Endgame ends. So a lot of people raged out online because, of course, they felt like this teaser trailer ruined Endgame for them. I'm going to get into that a little bit later. It doesn't. We see Peter packing for his trip, and Aunt May reminds him to bring his costume, and he seems a little reluctant. He just wants to go on a trip with his friends and be a normal teenager. Could this be a little PTSD a la Tony Stark Iron Man 3? Again, if this movie does take place after Avengers Endgame, maybe he is suffering from some trauma from those events. I mean, he did get wiped from existence in Infinity War. Peter is packing an old hand-me-down suitcase, and we see the initials BFP, and it's safe to assume that the suitcase was once owned by Uncle Ben. Look, everybody, this is called a book. This is how the ancient ones used to get their information long before the internet was invented. This is a Marvel encyclopedia. See, back in the day, if you were a comic book nerd, you got one of these like every couple of years for Christmas or for your birthday. And it's just a complete character rundown of everybody that was current at the time. But it'll give you their stats, their health, their height, their color of their hair, the color of their eyes, their abilities, their first appearance. It's basically Wikipedia before there was a Wikipedia. It's an encyclopedia. I could just Google it, but I don't trust the internet these days because everything you read on the internet is not necessarily true. I'm just curious to see what Uncle Ben's middle name is. I have no idea what it is. It's an F. It's not Franklin. That's the guy who invented electricity. I'm guessing I'm going to go with Francis. Not in the book. I have to Google it. But he had blue eyes. He weighed 175 pounds and he was 5'9". Well, look at that. Even the almighty Google doesn't know. If you guys know what Uncle Ben's middle name was, please put them in the comments because I'm not going to be able to sleep ever again. Then we see Peter's boy Ned getting his picture taken by a clone of Gwen Stacy. And if you look to the right on the ID tag on the boat, it says ASM212. And I looked it up. Amazing Spider-Man issue 212 is the first appearance of Hydro Man. I was a little surprised when I looked this up because Hydro Man was introduced in 1981, and I was under the impression that he was an old school Silver Age villain for Spider-Man.
Ah, yes. The Silver Age. It was a great time for comics millennials. It was a time when continuity mattered, and there was no gender swaps. It was a great time to be a comic book fan. Somebody please come visit me.
Aw, look who's in the trailer. Thanks for the spoiler alert, Sony. This is for all you fine folks out there who feel like Spider-Man Far From Home teaser trailer ruined Endgame for you. Listen, guys, we've known for a while that they were making a Spider-Man 2, and guess what? They're making a Black Panther 2, and they're making a Volume 3 for Guardians of the Galaxy. Guess what that means? I completely understand if you're a little upset about Nick Fury, because I wasn't expecting that either. But if this movie does take place after Endgame, then we know Nick Fury survives. But did you guys really, really think that they weren't going to resurrect Spider-Man? I know some people are up in arms because Tony Stark is not in this teaser trailer, and people think that that's alluding to the fact that he dies in Endgame. We don't know that. Colby Smulders, who plays Agent Maria Hill, is confirmed in this movie. So is Michael Keaton. Obviously, we don't care if Agent Maria Hill survives or not. It doesn't hold the weight of an Iron Man. But just because they weren't in the teaser trailer does not mean that they're not in the movie. Guys, I was always under the impression that everybody who got erased from existence was somehow going to get resurrected. The only people that I'm really worried about is the original Avengers. I think with a movie like Endgame, I don't think it's so much who gets resurrected, but I think the question is how. How do they beat Thanos? How do they get everybody back? And when everything is all said and done, who survives? Because I don't think most of the Avengers are going to survive. The original ones anyway. I will say this though, if Tony does die, he has to have some kind of moment with Peter Parker. Something on the level that they had in Avengers Infinity War. You know, the Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good. They've put a lot of time into building up this relationship between Peter and Tony. And for them not to have one more moment together would be a big mistake and pretty bad storytelling. When I saw this shot, I was like, oh, great, Sandman's in the movie. And Hydro Man, too. And then I found out it wasn't Sandman or Hydro Man. It was a bunch of people called the Elementals. And I was like everybody else. Who? I thought it was very well played by Sony if they put Sandman and Hydro Man into the movie, because another concern of mine is that Mysterio is like a B-list villain. I'm happy to see him because we've never seen him in a live-action movie before. But can Mysterio hold enough weight to be the big bad in a live-action movie? So when I saw Sandman, or what I thought was Sandman and Hydro Man, I was like, oh, this is going to work. The Elementals are 4 people, and you can guess what their powers are. Someone controls water, someone controls the earth, someone controls fire, and someone controls the wind. They were created like in the 1960s, and they weren't used very much. I really don't buy it, guys, at all. You're not going to have your big 2019 summer blockbuster movie and your main bad villains are 4 characters that were invented in the 1960s and were barely used, and nobody knows or has any idea who they are. Because if you read the description of the movie, it says that Mysterio is an ally, and I don't buy that. It looks like he's trying to play like the good guy, whatever nefarious backhanded plans that he has going on. He's trying to make himself look like a hero, and all these elemental attacks that Nick Fury mentions are illusions on his part. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up. And then we have this great shot of the stealth suit, and I'm really curious how this all plays out story-wise. If Peter doesn't bring his suit with him, then I'm guessing that S.H.I.E.L.D. gives him the red and black suit, which is why maybe we have the different color scheme. But this suit, the stealth suit, where does he get it from? Does he get it from S.H.I.E.L.D.? Does he make it himself? Or it was sent by Tony Stark because he's not dead. We get to see Jake Gyllenhaal in the Mysterio costume, and I think he's going to crush it. I don't know if because part of this movie is taking place in Italy, but his costume kind of reminds me of a Roman centurion soldier. But we have the little clips that hold up the cape, the Eye of Agamotto, those triangle eye things, and his gauntlets, very reminiscent of the comic book character. And also his arms, you know, traditionally he had the green suit with the lines. You know, it's represented there, and I think it looks pretty fresh. And the last shot that I want to talk about, they are doing the fishbowl helmet. What more could you ask for? So I read a comment on social media, and this was about the time everybody was debating whether Far From Home happens before Infinity War. And somebody was like, when we see Peter for the first time in Infinity War, he's on the school bus, and that's when he's coming back from his European vacation. And I was thinking, this guy might be onto something, because we don't know how Endgame is going to end, but what if they use like the Time Stone and the Reality Stone, and they just rewind everything back to before Infinity War happened, and it just completely wipes everything out? I don't know, there are so many fan theories out there. I'm enjoying reading them. Some of you guys are pretty creative, and some of you are really angry people. Spider-Man Far From Home will be releasing on July 5th, 2019, next summer, right for 4th of July weekend. So when you're not stuffing your pie hole with hamburgers and hot dogs, go check out this movie.